There they are. I knew I'd find them with the wake bait. That's the one.
Baby, double up.
That's the one we want.
Oh, that one's large.
Yeah, that's the one we want. That's the one we want.
Come on, baby.
Double up. What's going on, Salt Strong Nation? It's Matt, and I'm back with a really quick tip for you guys. We just put out a video recently about the preferred inshore wake bait setup, and there were some questions about the different types of retrieval that you may want to use with a wake bait. So I wanted to go ahead and jump on the water and show you guys a few different types of retrieves that I like to use when I'm using one of these Strike King KVD wake baits. So let's go ahead and jump on the water and check it out now. All right, Salt Strong Nation, we're going to go over some wake bait retrieval tips. And before we start, I do have the KVD Shizzle wake bait. I do want to let you guys know that this color right here is the Shizzle, and I do have it rigged up with #2 owner single end lines. We do have this option as well as natural shad available in our tackle shop at fishstrong.com, along with the rod and reel I will be using for this demonstration. This is my TFO Professional. This is my 7'6" medium model. This is what I use for throwing my wake baits, and I do have this with a Daiwa BGMQ 3000 sized reel. That is my wake bait setup, but I don't want to go too heavy into that right now. I just wanted to be able to really quickly show you guys some of the basic retrieves. So that's what we're going to do. I do have about 18 to 20 inches of leader out, and we're just going to go ahead and cast out. Now we're going to let the line lay down. What that does is that makes sure your line lays flat and doesn't get caught up in those hooks on that bait. Now once the line is sufficiently laid flat across the bottom of the water, I'll give it a quick couple twitches just to make sure that my line is straight. Now I'll just go ahead and the first retrieve we can talk about is just a nice slow steady retrieve. And if you can see back there, what that does is that kind of leaves a bit of a wake back there on the surface as this comes through the water. Now I am going pretty slow just so that I can keep it up near the surface of the water column, and I'm just giving it a slow steady retrieve right here on that rod with my rod tip pointed down. And you can see the bait is coming and giving us a nice little wake on the top. Now that's one retrieve, just a slow, steady, straight retrieve. That'll give you the wake bait action that you're looking for, that most people commonly associate with these baits. Now another one is what I like to do a lot of times is I'll throw it out and let it sit. Once I get that line tight, I'll get that retrieve going, and I'll know it's true and straight because I can feel the wobble. Now I'll give it a pause and a quick pop. Now what that does is that allows it to rise back up to the surface and gives it a bit of an erratic action as it comes down from the water surface. Now what that does is that can often trigger a strike as it mimics a fleeing bait fish from a hungry predator. Just to show you guys that one more time, what I'll do is I'll throw it out. I'll let my line settle back down to the water. That way I don't get any tangles in those hooks, and I'll just give it a quick pop and a couple twitches here and there with a slow retrieve and some erratic pops. What that does is that just kind of speeds up that bait right there and kind of gives it some erratic swimming action up near that surface. Now we'll go for another retrieve. We'll throw it out, and this one's going to be a bit of a reel and stop. It's reel and stop. Now all I'm doing is I'm just letting that bait naturally float back to the surface after I've reeled a few spins. So I'm reeling in about 4 or 5 feet, and then I'm just kind of giving it a stop, just letting it settle back to the surface. And as it comes back up to the top, sometimes when it gets right there to the top, that's when you'll trigger a strike. Just a little something to give it some new erratic motion. I like to give a couple twitches in there just to kind of help that bait have a little bit extra erratic action. So we'll cast it back out, let it sit, make sure our line has laid all the way back on the water, and we'll just start retrieving. Now it's important that you start retrieving your line first rather than give it a couple pops first, because what that can often do if you go to pop it before you start retrieving that line is it can tangle up your line around those hooks. Another thing that I like to do to make sure that my line doesn't foul up on those hooks is I will sometimes beef up my leader to a 30-pound monofilament leader. What that does is that helps keep that leader stiff. That 30-pound leader is a bit stiffer, and what that'll do is actually keep that line from fouling up around those front hooks. Often what you can have is a bit of this issue right here. It'll look something like this. You can get that front hook fouled up around your line like that, and it'll cause this bait to not run true. So go ahead and throw our wake bait back out there. All right, so we've casted our wake bait out there. We let it sit for a second because that bait is a little heavy. So we want to make sure that if we spooked any fish in the area when we cast it out, we are given plenty of time for those fish to return to the area before we start our retrieve.
If you guys are interested in seeing more fishing tips just like this, be sure to head over to the fishing tips section at saltstrong.com and check out all of the amazing fishing tips that are available to you there. As a member, you do get access to a bunch of other amazing tips that are not available to the public, so be sure to check out the membership at the pricing page as well. If you are seeing this on YouTube and you're interested in more inshore fishing tips, be sure to like and subscribe to these videos so that you get more amazing content just like this. So let's go ahead and head back to the water right now.
Just to recap really quick, the first and most basic will be the straight retrieve. That's a slow, steady retrieve so that you can kind of keep that wake bait up near the surface of the water column. If you keep your rod tip up, that allows you to keep the bait higher near the water surface. That way, that gives you a more wake bait action, just like we're looking for. Another option to retrieval would be to throw this out and to mix in some erratic motions with it. Some slow, steady retrieve with some erratic pops mixed in and a couple pauses. That just kind of gives this an erratic motion in that water so that it doesn't look the same throughout the entire retrieve. Okay, the third retrieve that we talked about will be one that's just a reel and stop. You reel it a few feet, 4 or 5 feet, and you just stop it. What that does is that brings it back to the water surface and it just pauses right there on top. Now, I like to do this a lot of times when it's super calm out, kind of like it is today. I'll give it a slow, steady retrieve, and I'll just like to pause it right there on top. I'll bring it back to the slow, steady retrieve. I'll just pause it right there on top. Now, this is a great way to get people who aren't used to working a walk the dog action lure. This is a great way to get them on some solid topwater blow-ups. Kids or even anybody who just has a tough time with that walk the dog action. That quick twitch action can sometimes give newer anglers a bit of trouble, so this can be a great way to get them on some fish. Okay, the fourth and final retrieve. This is what I like to do when there's a good bit of chop on the water. Say it's pretty choppy. I can use this wake bait as my search bait in really choppy or windy conditions. It's one of my favorites, but what I'll do is I'll just burn it. I'll get it going at a really good speed and I'll give it some erratic twitches. And what that does, going faster actually gets this bait a little bit lower in the water column. It'll get it down to about 6 or 8 inches or so, and that actually allows me to stay just up under those swells if there's some waves or whatnot going on the water surface. Say it's windy and we got some tough conditions, that's perfect for that, because when that wake bait runs a little bit deeper, it allows me to get under those swells, and even at the bottom of a swell, it could break it and come back to the water surface. And that's a lot of times, if there's a fish following it, that's when they'll hit it. So again, in conclusion, these wake baits, they're a great search bait during windy conditions. They're a great alternative for people who have trouble with the walk the dog action on a normal topwater plug lure. But this right here, as you can see, just leaves a great action across the water surface and is really enticing to, oh, you can see I got hit right there. It's really enticing to fish of all sizes, but big fish especially really love this bait.
So if there's any more questions you have about the wake bait, the setup I'm using with my TFO Professional or the BGMQ, or if you have any other wake bait suggestions for me, please leave those down in the comments section and I'll be sure to get back to you.
And if you're new to Salt Strong, just know that we are the #1 online fishing club in America. We actually guarantee to help you find and catch more fish, save money on tackle, make friends while doing it, or it's free. So we hope to see you in the Salt Strong Insider Club soon, and thanks for watching.